Roxana says that center of people is, I lost her, is scary, cause even in your friends you can find unreal things and you think you don't know that person. Yes, but it's not scary. It's the actuality of people. You can't simply feel just because you see a person's physical appearance and how they live, then you know who they are. That is the image they have in relation to interacting with your image. And you can have fun and interest in some activities together, but that doesn't mean that you know that person. Even your best friend. You may know a lot more about her, but still there are things that unless you knew the conditionings, the things she read, she saw, she was exposed to, she interacted with, she was taught, she was affected by ins and outs of her customs, religions, and some of the stuff that came to her through the genes, through the ancestors of hers and all that, you won't be able to totally know everything about that person. But knowing about why there are conflicts and divisions is because of all these differences will help you to be more tolerant and understanding and hopeful to together explore it, whether it's your best friend or your boyfriend, and then see, you know, if you guys can come to a better understanding of each other. And that's where it's all at. To understand each other, you got to first understand yourself, how you're put together. And that's why the understanding and knowing the center and how this whole thing is put together is very important. Otherwise, you would always try to think what you see is what they are. How many times have you been surprised when something happened and you were best friend with, somebody that was your best friend, and then something happens and suddenly you see some weird reaction or weird interaction with that very best friend that you knew for so long, and you thought, oh, that's just great friend. Because you don't really know how they're really put together, what their shortcomings, fears, what their ego level, what are all their concerns. You don't know that. And then you'd be surprised. Why? And if it's a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, each would say, oh, how come? And they're devastated because he wasn't like this. Yeah, he wasn't like this because you didn't know about it, and you didn't know the depth of each other's consciousness. You only knew about a certain limited amount of what was visible within each other. And you judged each other on that scenarios, bits and pieces of pleasure and interactions on physical levels. And then suddenly you made up your mind that this is what that person is. But there's a lot more to a person. Good, a lot more good or a lot more bad. That they will show themselves on certain, because they're reacting, they're bouncing back depending on what's being thrown at them. And the canvas of their consciousness, the field of their consciousness is woven differently in each person. So the same thing could be falling into it. A tennis ball could be falling into a concrete wall, hit into a concrete wall. It bounces back differently. And the same tennis ball, the same velocity is thrown against a trampoline standing vertically, it will bounce differently, different angle. And if you think of that same explanation about the field of the known, the field of each person's consciousness, then the same thing could be reflected differently from each person's consciousness, because they're made differently. The canvas of their structure is differently, so it bounces back, it reflects back. It's like each person's consciousness is a mirror, a surface of the mirror, but each consciousness has different cracks, different lines in that mirror, the field of the reflection. So the same thing reflecting on that, on different consciousness, on different mirrors of these consciousness would reflect differently because it has different cracks and different lines. So the reflection and understanding of that, what is reflecting on that mirror, would bounce back differently, would seem differently to that person who is actually owning that surface of the consciousness, that mirror. And therefore his response or her response would be differently because how it reflects what's on that mirror would be different because of the lines and cracks that that mirror has. And that's because of the conditionings they've received, different conditionings they've received through their lives, different experiences, different religion, different customs, different books, different exposures, different experiences. Therefore, the field of their consciousness, the mirror of their mind, has different lines and cracks created on it, so it can reflect things on them differently back. And their understanding and their responses would be based on what's the shape of a reflection of things, objects, and situations on the mirror of their consciousness. And because of its field being shaped differently, it reflects back differently. So that's the difference between people, because of the field of the known, because of the conditioning of their consciousness. And that's why you need to consider that in your relationships. You will never know all the cracks and lines on the mirror of their consciousness. Scary? Maybe. All right.